Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're discussing agentic AI and more specifically, how it might reshape the way we do recruitment. So, as we were talking about before, exciting for many, frightening for some. Maybe all of us should be a little bit frightened. We'll see after the session how we feel. Maybe some mixed emotions on this topic today. But of course, I do have a couple of people who know a lot more about this topic than I do. I was told beforehand to not call them experts as this is so new, but definitely more knowledgeable. So I'm going to let you introduce yourselves first. But Fredrik, would you like to introduce yourself and Hubert as well?
Sure. So, Fredrik, I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Hubert. Been with the company now for about 4 years. Previously to that, I used to run another company using AI technology, but from the AI technology 1.0, machine learning algorithm to optimize ads and marketing in order to drive sales. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. What we at Hubert do is that we help major enterprises, staffing and recruitment companies to improve their candidate experience by using structured AI interviews. The benefits of that is, of course, you as a user of it will save a lot of time in terms of CV screening, phone screening, scheduling, etc. So we at Hubert have created an agent that's going to help you out with that. We are a proud partner of Jobylon as well, so all our customers will get access to our technology through the integrations to Jobylon.
Exactly. So we're partners, but today you're joining us in the shape of non-expert experts.
Exactly.
Greg, what about you? Please introduce
I
yourself.
think I think that's a great way to start. I think hopefully we can bring some value here, but this is all changing so quickly. I think it would be foolish for anyone, I think, to say that they were an expert, particularly right now. But hopefully we can bring some value here. Yeah. So I'm Greg. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Hubert. I have been with the company about a year, but I've known Fredrik for about 10 years. We have some history together in some of that background, and I've come through kind of enterprise technology, startups, scale ups. All sorts of stuff, mostly transformational technology and the implementation of that. I usually introduce myself as an AI optimist. So just to balance, I know we started to talk about it's okay to be frightened. I don't want to put too much emphasis on that. I am predominantly excited about where this is going to go and the potential value that this could bring. But I'm sure we'll get into that shortly. My kind of little add to how we introduce Hubert. The way I think about it is Hubert is helping candidates to find the fastest, most efficient path to the best jobs, and we're helping recruiters find the fastest, most efficient path to the best talent. And as Fredrik said, we're doing that by we've taken the science behind structured skills-based interviewing, we've combined it with conversational AI, agentic AI, to do interviews right at the start of the application journey, to remove the need to do CV screening, to remove the need for application forms, and really fundamentally to help customers tackle this rising tsunami of AI-enabled candidates, to be able to cut through that and find the best talent quickly while not destroying the candidate experience, improving the candidate experience. That's how I like to think about what we're doing at Hubert.
Hmm, very good. Good ad. It's also fun that you're introducing Hubert in two sort of different, but of course aligned ways.
Kind of my job. I'm head of commercial. That's kind of my job.
That's what you do. I love it. All right. And for those of you who are new for us at Jobylon, of course, I will introduce us as well. But my name is Tove. I'm marketing lead here at Jobylon, and I'll function as your moderator today. And for those of you who are new to us at Jobylon, we are a flexible talent acquisition suite. We have many strengths, and particularly if you look into our ATS, it's our customization. So we're able to customize everything from career pages to job ads to workflows, and we're extremely flexible in that. We also offer candidate feedback through TrustRecruit by Jobylon, which as we approach AI more and more in recruitment, we intersect it more and more, we, improve our processes. That ties in a lot with candidate experience, as you mentioned as well, Greg, and how we look at that. So of course, that's also a topic that we'll discuss today. But so what are we talking about today? Well, we're going to talk about what agentic AI is and what it means for recruitment. We're going to talk about the impact it has on workflows, tech stacks, candidate experience, team strategy, structure. How do we actually work with this and what does it mean for all of these things? And then, of course, some practical advice is what we're hoping to get out of this session in terms of HR and TA to prepare for this new kind of era of AI. And the session will be recorded, so you'll receive the recording afterwards. We will do this in more of a Q&A fireside chat style. So I have prepared questions on specific themes that we'll go through today to cover these topics. But then, of course, we want to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions. So use the chat, use the Q&A function. We'll take most of your questions towards the end, but if you have any comments throughout the webinar, please make sure to add your voice in the comment section, and we'll make sure to bring that up as well. But with that, let's get started here. And when it comes to AI, so from my perspective, I think with agentic AI in particular, I think it's important that there are a few things that we do cover, what it is, how it's being used, but also maybe how it should not be used, where other things might be more appropriate. But then, of course, we're also mindful of the fact that, you know, we're discussing something that we don't really know what it's going to be like, right? The world of recruitment is changing really fast and have been for the past 15 years or so. It's been a rapid just change process. And with AI, that's only sped up. With agentic AI, we're adding another layer. We're kind of in the third wave of AI, if you want to talk about it that way. So I think there's a lot of, you know, uncertainty, and we carry that with us today. So we'll what we said beforehand is let's follow up in 18 months and see how many of the things we talked about today actually came through. But my first question here, and I think we'll turn to you, Fredrik, for this one, but there's a lot of talk about agentic AI, but I think we need to kind of come to a starting point where we all are at the same level. So how would you describe what agentic AI is, if we start there?
Sure. So no, we're moving into the agentic area right now as we speak. But let's talk about the traditional AI that we as people here in this webinar is probably more used to, and start what's the difference to the traditional AI. The traditional AI has been very much focusing on solving a specific task and to automate just that task. In our world, a typical example of that would be parsing a CV or trigger a chatbot reply from a static list of answers to your frequently asked questions. That is typical usage of automation from traditional AI. What happens now when we're moving into the agentic era, and the agentic AI, on the other hand, is that it can actually work towards a goal, break that goal into subtasks, choose the right tools to solve that specific task, and execute those steps without any hand holding from people, monitor the results, iterate until this goal is actually met. So in other words, it acts throughout a workflow rather than respond to a specific task. Going back to the example of a chatbot responding to an FAQ from a static list, now the agentic AI watching the incoming questions, maybe fetching the answers from policy documents, from a data lake, and rewrites those answers in the tone of voice of this specific language for this specific candidate, and escalates it to a human if it cannot find an answer. So it works towards the goal, solving the question, using a lot more information to solve that type of question. If it cannot solve that question, it will escalate and involve a human. That's the typical example of agentic AI, I think. I think you can see it as also as a junior colleague who knows when to ask for help, but otherwise will get on and just do the job, basically. And I'm a big fan of this. I truly believe that the agentic AI has the potential to 10x leap on top of today's automation gains, but it also raises the bar for responsibility and oversight, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg, I mean, Fredrik started talking on this as well, but you tend to say systems working with each other, right, rather than people working with systems. Do you have any additional comments to add in terms of what agentic AI is, or how an example of what that would look like in recruitment?
Yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead too soon, but I would add that I think if you're looking for a sort of simple definition to follow up on what Fredrik was saying there, if you think about Gen AI particularly is reactive, it's reacting to a prompt or input, and there's a human very much kind of doing the reviewing, doing the prompting, reviewing the output, whereas agentic AI, by the term agentic, we have given it the agency to get the job done on its own. So as Fredrik said, it's very much like having a colleague that is autonomous, that is able to make its own decisions about how it solves the problem. To your point though, sort of what I would call machine to machine. So what we've been sort of thinking about there is humans interacting with a system, or using agency, using agents as an interface to systems. I think that's step one. That's something that we're going to be doing a lot more of at Hubert. And so just starting there before we get on to answering your question, I think we can unlock a lot more value from systems that we're already using by putting agentic interfaces around them. So in our case, that's likely to be an agentic interface for recruiters, so they can actually start to interact with Hubert using natural language, right? It's a lot easier to work with the system, less about pressing buttons, more about natural language inputs. But the same also for candidates. They will have an increasingly more agentic experience where the candidate is in control of the process. So I think that's kind of where we're heading with the human interface. Sorry, that didn't answer your question though. The machine to machine piece I think is super interesting, right? And I think about that in two ways. First of all, when we talk about agentic, I don't think we're just talking about an agent, using one agent. I think what we're already seeing is that companies are going to move towards a world where they're employing kind of clusters or teams of agents to do different tasks, and they'll be structured in a hierarchy that kind of really resembles the way that human teams work today. And this isn't millions of years away. This is coming soon. So, in the world of recruitment, that could be an agent doing sourcing, another agent doing screening, another agent doing onboarding, another agent doing the orchestration, of scheduling, and then even a managing agent sitting over the top of that, sort of managing the whole end-to-end process. The candidate won't necessarily know that, but I think that's how you'll start to see systems working with, multiple small agents. I think the final piece, though, which is maybe where your question was coming from, is around no-code integration. So this is where I get very excited. I think in the past, trying to integrate different systems, and I know we've got some customers in this webinar now who have shared their difficult experiences of integrating systems. Often integrating different systems can be a bottleneck to innovation. It can be costly and time-consuming to create those integrations at the start, but also then trying to change them as the world changes in the future. Trying to change those integrations and adapt processes can be really difficult. And I think what we're going to start to see quite soon, frankly, is where vendors and system providers like Hubert, like Jobylon, will have agents managing those integrations, and they will be programmable with natural language. So we will be able to adapt the way that those integrations work to be much more agile and to evolve our workflows and our processes in a much faster way, which is going to give us great access to leveraging this technology and innovating much faster.
That's super exciting. I mean, being able to integrate or to have systems working in a way that we can today only dream about. I think a lot of people in this session, I'm guessing, have dealt with the frustrations of sitting in separate systems that aren't necessarily working together. So, regardless of what your tech stack looks like.
I'll add one point if that's right. I was a long answer, but I'm just going to add one thing. Jobylon, I know, is a real advocate of an ecosystem. You've got a great marketplace of pre-integrated partners. And I think what this does is it unlocks the potential of that. This means that you
Yeah.
can then evolve that ecosystem far faster in the future.
Yeah, and that's super exciting because also, I mean, every single large corporation there is have different ways of working, and of course, regardless of where you are in terms of a tech company, yeah, you're gonna have a hard time customizing for everyone everything, right? So this really opens the door to that. That sounds really exciting. But I think something that we need to raise as well is that, of course, there's legislation coming out when it comes to AI. So the EU AI Act, for example, which will be when it comes to HR tech, of course, we're also ranked very as high risk on that in that legislation. So if we just take that as an example or legislation as a whole, can companies feel excited about agentic AI, or will it come with a lot of kind of demands for how you work with it, proof of how like to an increased degree from what we're seeing with more conversational AI or LLMs today. What would you say? Any of you feel comfortable talking law?
Yeah.
In general, too, I'm very positive and excited about this the agentic AI. I have to say that. At the same time, of course, I'm a bit afraid, as I mentioned in the early in this session, mostly for how it will affect the future generations of us as humans. What's going to happen to my kids and so on. But also what's going to happen to us in the upcoming 10, 15 years in terms of how it will actually affect the way we're working. It's going to be natural that the HR teams are upskilling and leaving a lot of the repetitive tasks like writing ads, screening candidates, scheduling interviews, and all of those kind of repetitive tasks. Leave those for agents, of course. But it might also lead to we're working less. And I think that is, from a historical perspective, it's kind of natural. Given that we 100 years ago used to work 100 hours per week, and now we are down to, and then we went down to 80, 60, and now we in Sweden are down to 40, Norway 37, and France 35. I think we will continue down, but it will come to a point where we're losing the purpose of working, and that's, to me, scares me. When it comes to is it positive for the companies? In general, yes, very much so, I think, because there is also the traditional AI that's been really much focusing on the specific task and automate that specific task. That's great, but there is a lot of science showing today that most companies doesn't benefit from that in terms of they're not saving any money based on it. And the main reason for that is just because it solves one specific task. So if you solve one task, usually an employee conducts just more than one task. It conducts a lot of tasks. So you won't be able to save any money on just automating one single task. Agents will make that possible. So realize a true monetary value for the implementation of agents. That will be easier going forward. When it comes to legislations, I think it's great. I'm super positive about it, and being compliant is a necessity because there is a lot of risks using this, especially in the recruitment space. Technology using this kind of AI will be classified as high risk, and there is a good reason for that, for sure. And there is right now there is a lot of buzzwords out there. There is system providers promising a fully automated workflow from publishing the ad to hiring, and that's not possible. It will be illegal 1 year from now to do that. There has to be a human in the loop. There has to be a transparent system for for understanding how this technology actually works, and it makes sense that it has to be transparent. So I think it's good that we get this kind of legislations in place, and yeah, that will help us for sure.
I think the decision making is definitely where people get a little bit frightened, right? When it comes to agentic AI, they can infer things from learning and they can make decisions and move on. But when it comes to recruitment, as you said, Fredrik, that won't be necessarily, at least in the near future, possible thanks to legislation. Greg, do you have any comments on that as well?
Yeah, I think, look, we've spent a lot of time making sure that Hubert is compliant. Is critical to our business, compliant with the regulations, but also it's ethical. I mean, for anyone that's read the EU AI Act, as I have twice, it's 144 pages. It's actually common sense, and it actually, in my opinion, regardless of whether you are going to be regulatory, whether it's enforceable or not, actually, what's more important is it's built on an ethical framework that I think we should all want to adhere to. For the sake of humanity. So I'm in favour of all the legislation. Yeah, I think we need to just, even though this session is all about agentic AI, doesn't mean we should be using agentic AI for everything. And it's kind of to your initial point. And that may change over time. So right now at Hubert, there are certain things we're comfortable using agentic AI for. There's certain things we're comfortable using LLMs for, but there are certain things that we're not right now. And again, that may change, but right now, making assessments, there's certain things, automating processes, automating scheduling, that there are certain automations where it makes a lot of sense to use this technology. In some of the conversation and orchestration of the process, it makes sense. When it comes to assessing an individual's capability and future ability to be successful in a role, and ranking and scoring candidates, and as you said, Tove, inferring, one candidate is better than another. Right now, that's, we think, quite a dangerous use of an LLM. And LLMs, because they're a black box, LLMs are a black box, they're not very explainable. And you need to put a lot of guardrails around them for this to be safe. And of course, LLMs are effectively the cognitive brain behind these AI agents. So I think it's really, really important. We're excited about it, but it's very important to take steps, careful steps towards where we use it and where we don't use it, to your sort of initial point in that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, when we talk about this, and we're gonna move more into as well, kind of how this is poised to affect the human voice in all of this. But we got a question that I think we can take right away, which was also on our radar to discuss. So I'll read the comment so everybody has it. But from a cost perspective, companies could tend to cut or even eliminate TI teams, enabling or forcing self-service of hiring managers supported by AI agents, then reduce hours of work because then they would have to sustain salary levels, etc., for HR teams. So, what are your thoughts on this? And I think this is a general kind of on the negative side of AI coming in and taking over, right? A lot of us are afraid that, oh, okay, but how skilled am I? Am I gonna have to, am I gonna have to switch jobs? Am I gonna have to do something else? And I think especially in recruitment, because there's so much buzz about AI specifically in recruitment, and now with agents coming in, I think this is a really valid question. So, Fredrik, I mean, you brought up that companies could think about it in that way, that you maybe upskill a TA team, for example, to do some of the other stuff and not the repetitive tasks. But what happens as AI agents kind of continue developing and are able to do more complex work?
It's a difficult question. Nobody really knows, but from a logical perspective, what we see right now in terms of the AI technology that is developed right now, the most logical thing would be that there will be an upskilling, that some of the work that is characterized as repetitive work will be replaced to some extent with agents, and that will force the TI teams to move upwards, or reskilling and take more of a orchestrator or AI manager role, overseeing the AI technology. And also, once the technology is escalating a task that they cannot conduct, it will involve these people to run it. I think that's the natural thing. I also think the recruiters will, of course, need to become more of strategic thinking when it comes to deploying AI and understanding of this type of technology. So it's a part of overseeing the work in the HR team. No, I don't see that agents can take full control and work directly with the hiring managers, not at this stage at least, and not in the upcoming years, because the hiring managers are usually focusing on the operations rather than being experts in HR questions and in HR work and recruitment in general. So I think that expertise will be needed inside the company to oversee the agents to work according to how you want them to work. But the agent's gonna be a natural colleague for any TI team in the future. I think we all can agree on that.
Tove, I've got an observation on this as well. So having worked, I started my career in an enterprise deploying transformational technology. That's kind of where I got my passion, in media, actually, going through digital transformation when we thought the internet was going to kill everything, right? And so I've been in that kind of fear position and really wholesale transformation. And then I've spent the rest of my career selling transformational technology because I've got a passion for it. But often when you're kind of selling or buying enterprise technology, it's to disrupt an existing process and to drive efficiencies in that existing process. That's what often the focus goes towards, right? And I think, again, that's where our attention tends to go here. I think what we're forgetting is though that the world around us is also completely changed. So to me, this isn't just about disrupting the status quo. I talk about it. There's been a structural change in the industry, and a structural change in the way that candidates even apply for jobs, and that's been driven by candidates' own use of technology. So they're using one-click apply. They're using these AI tools themselves to apply for tons and tons of jobs. They're automatically customizing their application, and so the status quo has changed. So recruiters are under increasing pressure, trying to work out who are the people we should hire, who are the people we should spend time with. So we're not just disrupting a sort of legacy process. We're actually, I think, going to be using technology to solve an emerging problem and an emerging opportunity to solve problems that have been around for a long time. So if you look at it through that lens, this isn't necessarily going to be about losing jobs. This is actually going to be about using technology to fix and harness a structural change that's happened in the industry, and I think it's going to have great benefit because if you want a little soundbite, I think this is going to remove the drudgery from recruiters' jobs, because all of these problems I've just described means that you're scanning thousands of CVs, you're probably ghosting candidates. 2025 and we're ghosting candidates more than we ever have done. How is that possible in 2025? We spend hours and hours and hours chasing candidates to get them to do a telephone interview or to arrange a time to meet, right? I mean, I think we're going to look back at those tasks and go, did we really used to do that? Did people used to do that job? Like, that's crazy. Wow. Like, why did people do that? So, and we'll be doing other things. We'll be doing other more value adding things. And I think we'll also be making the process more human. So one of the things I hear a lot is AI going to dehumanize the process? And I think it's the opposite. I think the process is already being dehumanized because of this tsunami of candidate applications. You lose the ability to have that human interaction. And actually, we can use technology in a smart way to give the humans time back to do the storytelling, the trust building, build the empathy with the candidate, and think about the hiring strategy. So I said at the start, I'm an optimist. There's an example of why I'm an optimist.
I love it. I also love that you focus a little bit more on kind of the human side and what can't be replaced, because I think that's what we need to think about, because there are a lot of things that we need to keep the human to human connection as well. But when it comes to this, then, because now we've talked a little bit about, okay, the way this will actually change how we work, the way you can implement. And then, of course, as we said in the beginning, we don't know, right? This is so new. But when it comes to TA specifically, then, or to people who are working in that sphere today, which our listeners are doing, when it comes to that sphere, what are the roles that they will kind of be taking on rather than sitting and doing all of these not only repetitive tasks, but that's a big part of a lot of recruiters' jobs today. So what can you imagine being some of the new kind of roles or functions that they will have to upskill into, if you will? Any ideas?
Fredrik, do you want to go, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can start for sure. I can start. As I mentioned before, I think it will involve more of overseeing orchestration of these agents. So as a recruiter, you will need to learn how to manage these agents, prompting to them and pushing them to act the way you want, basically. So that will be critical, I think. So understanding also the legal impact at the market will also be important from a strategic point of view. What can we do with the agents and what cannot we do? Understanding what type of technology you should use for certain tasks and what other technology you can use for other tasks. That's super hard to understand today because the technology is evolving and developing so quickly. That is something you need to be up to speed on all the time to benefit from the latest technology and win, because that win at the talent market, that's going to be crucial for any team going forward, I think.
Mm.
So I
Very.
think there will be new type of competences within the HR team that has to be complemented, like technology.
Do you also foresee then, because I mean, this goes way above or beyond AI, but this discussion on HRTA having a seat at the leadership table in general, because in a lot of companies, like the management teams, for example, don't necessarily have HRTA represented, but from a strategic standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, right? In terms of workforce planning, in terms of just being able to recruit the right people for your company being such a crucial part. Do you foresee with the shift and kind of moving up in among that ladder as well, if you will? Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, just to build on the start of that conversation, I'm going to give you another little kind of controversial soundbite. I think CV screening, in my opinion, is dead, right? Just linking back to what I was saying before about the way that candidates are now, using tools to customize their applications. I think it's become, even for AI, it's become impossible now to look at a CV and make any kind of accurate forecast around who would be the right candidate for the job. Yeah, and to add to what Fredrik said, I think it's going to be very much about moving from using tools. Today, I think we think about using tools, using software, and I think we're going to move to a world where it's more about commanding or either training or guiding or commanding agents, to find the best talent or to whatever the task is, right? It's going to be overseeing and commanding those agents. I think we are going to need to upskill. I mean, that's a requirement of the EU AI Act that anyone interacting with these systems needs to be upskilled on how they work and be AI literate. So I do think we're going to need to become more AI literate, everybody. However, I know that's quite scary and probably some people are getting a slight sick feeling in their stomach that I didn't want to have to become an AI expert. I don't think we need to be AI experts. I think there is some really basic stuff that we can learn to be able to bridge between what is the technology doing and how should it be applied and where is an appropriate use of that technology. So I do think actually there are some kind of there's a sort of intermediary level of understanding that will be required, but is actually not that scary once we get into it.
Mm.
May I add to that as well? I don't necessarily think it's the strategic usage of AI technology in the HR team that will bring the HR team to the executive leadership team. I think the main problem today is that a lot of HR teams and TA teams in particular doesn't speak the universal company language, which is finance, uh, to the same extent as the operational teams does. And that means that they have hard to argue for why they should do in a certain way and why they should be a part of that team. However, the AI technology will open up for that. Once the data is more opened, there will be AI agents internally in companies looking into that type of data, doing those type of estimations that can support the HR and TI team to get those kind of financial KPIs and explain why it's so important with TA and what you will benefit of having a great TA strategy. That an agent will help you out with, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, a very interesting take. Thank you both for answering. We are getting a lot of questions actually, which is really fun. So I'm gonna move on to taking some audience questions here. But one that we got that I think was interesting that can kind of segue us a bit is we got a comment here that Google CEO has said that internal AI has only improved productivity by about only about 10%. Uh, if that's kind of if we think of Google, they have, I mean, they've developed so many different AI techs. If their efficiency is only increased by 10% so far, not agentic AI, of course, but other types, can we defend kind of the massive amounts of money that people are investing or companies are investing in AI if that's the small change that we see of 10%?
I mean, yes, I am biased, but yes, I think is the answer to that. I don't think we have a choice.
Yeah.
I think the world is changing around us so rapidly, and to me, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. This isn't necessarily just about driving efficiencies in.
No.
I think we could focus way too much on efficiencies, and this is about adapting to the new world around us. It's about
Mm,
unlocking new opportunities. It isn't just about efficiencies. I think those efficiencies will grow. I think some of that, if you listen to BCG, Boston Consulting Group, and any of the big consultancies, when they talk about transformation, they attribute kind of 10% of the benefit to the system, 20% of the benefit to the data feeding the system, and then 70% is about change management. So I think a lot of it is, and that's people and processes, right? So I think what we need to also do is be better at the change management piece. So not just buying the software, but working out how to implement it and how to really harness it and get the best by changing the process and retraining and restructuring and retraining the people. So I think that 10% is going to grow, but I think it's masking the fact that the world has changed around us in the background. We're not just talking about the status quo.
mm, very good.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I agree. I mean, it's gonna be a lot about. I foresee that these type of efficiency gains will grow over time, and it's mostly delayed by change management. It takes time. We as humans, we like to behave the way we have always behaved, so we're resistant to change. It's natural for us to be so. So it's going to take some time. And then we will see, along with the improvement of the technology, there will be more efficiency gains going forward. I'm 100% convinced on that.
yeah. Yeah. I think I mean I agree with you. So I
But
but
I think, sorry, Tommy, just can I add one thing as well?
yeah.
I also think, just again to be on a positive note, what I heard, I was listening to someone talk at a conference recently, and they were talking about some of the statistics on recruiter burnout and recruiter stress levels, and as I understand it, that's at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And so another positive way to look at it, it shouldn't be expected that people are having to work all hours of the day screening CVs and going home stressed because they didn't get through all of the applications, and maybe I missed some good candidates, maybe I've ghosted some candidates, maybe I've given a really bad experience, or there's someone now complaining about, you know, the employer brand, and you know, this company never got back to me. We all know the impact of that, right? And that's really stress inducing. That shouldn't be the norm, right? We shouldn't expect that that's how we live. So you know, if we can get to a 4-day week, I mean, that's a realistic, you know, 3-day weekends, and actually having some time back to do a normal job. I mean, that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way, right? I mean, but we've got to go through steps to get to that point, and mistakes will be made, and you know, and we will all have to adapt, of course, which is not nice.
No, absolutely. Greg, on that topic, I don't want to take this part, but I am, because I want to ask this question myself. But I mean, if we look back even on the Industrial Revolution, right, that was also thinking that, you know, we've gone through this with the internet, with the Industrial Revolution. We've gone through these kind of phases before as humanity. And it's never really, I mean, yes, we work shorter weeks now, but with the internet, for example, with all the efficiency tools and stuff, it's rather that output, we're expected to give more output rather than working less, though, right? So all the tools are kind of making us more efficient, but that also raises the demands for how much we're supposed to be able to fit into those 40 work hours if you work a normal week. So would that, do you actually think that we're moving in that direction? I really want us to,
Yes.
but do you actually think so? Or do you think that, okay, there could also be that we're more efficient, so now we should just do more things?
Both. I think. No. I think the answer is both. Right. I mean, again, to my point about the changing world. If you look back, there were jobs like, you know, lamplighters, people who used to walk
Yeah.
around the streets, you know, lamping, and people who used to crank cars and deliver ice blocks before the days of refrigerators and all this sort of thing. Right. There's all these jobs that have disappeared. Would we yearn to go back to those days? No.
No,
Like,
of
we've
course
moved on
not.
for a reason, and now we've got people working in power plants and, you know, all sorts of other new jobs that have emerged. So, you know, the difference here is, I know it's well documented. There's a big difference here, which is this is technology that is infinitely smarter than we are, and that's the first time that's happened. So there's the uncertainty. However, yes, again, I'm an optimist. I think we will definitely be expected to do more, and we will do more. But I also genuinely think we're going to get time back, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
No, I agree with you. Okay, another question here. Do you think using an AI tool to produce a reputation report on candidates could benefit TAs and recruiters? I think that's a really interesting question.
Wow. I'm happy to take that one quickly. If you, and Fredrik, I know
Go
you're.
for it, Greg. Go for it, Greg.
I think that all depends, right? My one of my key tips would be, when you're looking at vendors and technology, you know, don't just think about what the technology is doing. Make sure you've asked the question how it does that and why they've chosen to use that technology to do that. My hunch would be that what you're talking about there is using a large language model based solution, whether it's just ChatGPT or Claude or something, or Gemini, or a tool that's been built on top of one of those large language models. If that is the approach that the vendor is taking, I would approach with extreme caution. This is my off the
Yeah.
top of my head view, because they're black boxes. We don't understand. You know, there is bias in these systems. Martin Redstone, if you don't know, Martin Redstone has just done a really great analysis of LLMs reviewing CVs, and sort of looking at the outcome of different LLMs and the different models, and it's quite alarming, actually. LLMs have got a really valuable place. I'm not anti-LLM. We use LLMs, but they've got to be used in the right place at the right time. Otherwise, you could be introducing all sorts of invisible biases, things, invisible, you know, differentiators, and that can have a fundamental impact on someone's ability to get a job. That can have a fundamental impact on their basic human rights. And that is what the EU AI Act is most concerned about. So we should be taking that really, really seriously. I'd be very nervous about that.
Yeah, that's a good answer, I think. Uh, Another question that we got is, how do you balance, wait, where, let me see if I can find it again. But how do you balance sort of the legal aspect, the curiosity aspect, with also having oversight over AI? how do you kind of find a balance when you're in recruitment? Fredrik, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. A very difficult question. To me, it's hard to find a balance when it comes to legislation. It's just you either you follow it or you don't follow it. So it's hard to find a balance there. But obviously, you need to ask the right questions when you choose a vendor. And ensure that this is a vendor that is compliance with the EU AI Act, as we're in Europe right now. With curiosity, I think that's very much of a cultural thing within an organization, that we are open for the usage, try to pilot and encourage the usage of it, as long as we have asked the right type of questions, and that it's about risk and compliance. Ask those questions and then be curious. That's my advice.
Very good. And I think to wrap up, we have gone a few minutes over, but to wrap up, I want to finish with another question that we got, which is, I'm a TA manager today. What are 2 things that I could do this quarter to start preparing for agentic AI? Maybe do one each. One from you,
Sure.
Fredrik, one from you, Greg.
I would like to get back to my answer. Be curious. From my perspective, being curious is about asking that questions in a small, asking those questions and starting in a small scale. Meaning that running pilots in defined parts of your working processes, and see how it works, how it benefits you, iterate, change, see what fits your organization, and then scale it. That's what I would say.
And Greg, what's your advice?
I would agree. I do hear and see a lot of hesitancy, which I completely understand. And I think people are kind of looking at this and thinking, well, things are emerging very fast, things are changing, I don't want to make the wrong decision. The thing is, that's going to continue for the next 15 years, right? So if you wait, then nothing's going to happen. So there's a couple of things. One is exactly what Fredrik said. Iterate in a safe environment. Make sure you understand how to do things safely and work with partners that you can trust on that to take some of that risk or help you through that risk. But iterate, experiment, and learn. That's the best way. I think, to learn. And then I think the other key thing is it doesn't all have to be agentic, right? So and before you dive in and think, and this is really obvious, so apologies, but before you dive in and think, I must do something agentic, and this is coming from someone that has an agentic business, focus first on what is the problem you're trying to solve and what is the opportunity you're trying to unlock, right? One of those 2 things, maybe both. Start back there, as we always have done. What's the problem? What's the opportunity? Maybe I've got lots of different challenges, in which case prioritize the ones that are going to make the biggest difference and start there. And it may be that agentic isn't the solution. It may be that there's a combination. We in Hubert, we're a combination of agentic and conversational and machine learning, and also and some stuff that's not even AI at all, right? Yeah. So start with the challenge, the problem, or the opportunity. Talk to vendors, learn, and reach out. We're very, very happy to talk to anyone and hold hands with customers through this process and learn together.
I think that sounds great. Thank you both for being here. I wish we had more time because there's a lot more questions that we could ask on this topic, but we'll do a follow-up. We'll see if and how agentic AI has taken over when it comes to recruitment in a few months or so. Thank you so much to Fredrik and Greg for joining us. Of course, thank you to all of you who are still with us. Really excited to see, and thank you for all your insightful questions. Make sure to connect with Fredrik and Greg on LinkedIn to continue the discussion, and we'll follow up with the recording after this so that you'll have full access. All right, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Fredrik.
Thank you,
Bye,
Tuva.
everyone.